President Asher Cohen, it's my honor to be able to ask you a few questions this morning. What has been the biggest challenge to Israeli higher education during the corona pandemic?
I would divide the challenges into two categories. One category, the obvious one, is teaching. We couldn't bring students to the campus and we had to teach them. And that all happened just towards the beginning of the second semester. And what we had to do is to shift all the way from live teaching. We have approximately 3,000 courses. We only had 30 or 40 online courses, and we had to shift to close to 3,000 courses within 1 week, and then to do the teaching. So that was one challenge. And in terms of the outcome, we actually did quite well. The semester was finished. The students got their degree if they finish or finished their semester. And generally speaking, they were quite satisfied. It's not that it was without problems, but they were quite satisfied with their teaching. The other category of challenge is research. And that can be divided into two in and by itself. One is the regular teaching, the regular research, which was disrupted. It was disrupted because you couldn't really go regularly to the labs because of inability to reach the campus. And some research projects were in the middle, where you often cannot stop. And I think we actually met that challenge as well, meaning that we don't have research projects that were stopped because of the pandemic, and everything that was necessary to be done was done. There are other research projects which we could suspend, and we suspended. So there is a little bit of damage here, but it's a short-term damage because those are research projects that one can continue afterwards. So it's slower, but it still works. The other research challenge is to try to help with respect to the virus, with respect to COVID-19 and its effects. And this is still an ongoing challenge that we are dealing with, I think successfully, but the outcome is only in the future to be judged.
Asher, is there a disproportionate disadvantage to whether it's a Palestinian or a Orthodox Jew to learn virtually, whether because they don't have the necessary equipment or access to necessary equipment? Are they being impacted negatively, disproportionately?
You know, I can speak about the Hebrew University because it's possible that there was an adverse impact elsewhere. But at least at the Hebrew University, we made sure that everyone has technological access. People that didn't have, say, tablets or laptops, we provided them with. Sometimes we lent them, sometimes we actually gave it to them, depends on the situation, but we made sure that no one was left behind. And we don't know of any particular worse effect among the Palestinians, among the Israeli Arabs, or among the ultra-Orthodox. As far as we know, it was sort of normal. It still means that some students don't make it. Every year, some students don't make it. But it doesn't appear to be any different and fundamentally different from what it was before the pandemic. It was actually a very important goal of us to make sure that we do not leave people behind.
Do you think that Israeli higher education is going to emerge from this crisis markedly different than pre-pandemic?
In one respect, for sure. Teaching is never going to go back to what it used to be before the pandemic. We were already in the process of exploring all kinds of online teaching methodologies and combining them in one form or another with live teaching, but we were doing it in a kind of slow process. We examined all kinds of options, but we were not in a hurry And it probably would have taken us 6-7 years to reach the point that we are already at because of the pandemic. It forced us to move things quickly. We did. And once the pandemic is over, and it will be over eventually, we will not go back to where we were. We will teach differently in a combination, we call it hybrid teaching, of some online and some live courses and some combination of online and live courses, depending on the domain and on the type of course. So yes, in this respect, there has been a fundamental change. In terms of research, I think we are doing well. I hope we will do even better in the future, but no fundamental change. We were, I believe, I hope, excellent before, and we are going to continue to be excellent in the future.
A couple of years ago at the Board of Governors meetings, you spoke of, and I'm quoting, digital dreams, end of quote, for Hebrew University. Has your vision changed since you've been president?
The short answer is no. In general, our long-term plans for research and for the development of the university did not change, simply because the pandemic, we believe, is a short-term issue. It might take a year, it might take 2 years. I hope it's going to be months away from us, but long-term goals haven't changed. So in fact, as the pandemic goes on, we started digging for our innovation park. The digging just started a few weeks ago on schedule. We will have a full-fledged innovation park within 4 to 5 years, just as planned. And the innovation park is part of my or our digital dream. We are developing the computational medicine center, and it's going very well. In fact, some of the research that is going on with the pandemic will contribute to the computational medicine center. And so it's working there as well. We just established a few months ago digital humanities, which is, I didn't talk about it, but it's part of the digital dream. And we did it in the middle of the pandemic. So the answer is, I still think that we are exactly in that trajectory for doing beautiful things with the technology while answering, in some cases, old questions differently.
Asher, what are your dreams regarding the humanities, history, political science, psychology, music? What are your dreams with respect to those elements of the university?
You can divide it, again, into two different categories. First of all, it's not a dream, it's a goal to keep being excellent in all of those domains, the social sciences, the humanities. But I do think that we have to combine, even in those domains, technology. Now, the technology here is not to change the questions and not to seek different answers, but to find ways to answer those questions differently. And I'll give you an example from the humanities. We have huge amount of data of testimony on the Holocaust. The Nuremberg trials have huge amount of data. Now, what is common to all of those testimonials? What is it that was at the core of the issues that went on in the Holocaust? In the past, people read it. And you know, we can read. It takes time, but we read, and then we try to generalize, and some people are able to do it well. But with technology and focusing on key words, for example, or key issues that we can scan, we can generalize a lot better. The issues are the same, but the method of doing it is different. Similarly, in the social sciences, as I said before, we want to advance smart cities. Smart cities are, so to speak, about technology, because you can use technology to enhance and to improve life in the city. But the fundamental issue of smart cities are not technological. These are issues of civil rights, of balance between different rights, of knowing what to use and what not to use. Those are fundamentally social issues which are part of the social science. And I believe that they have to be part of the social science research as well. So yes, we are going to keep doing what we did it well, and we are going to keep doing them, but we are going to augment those types of research projects with new technologies that will help us answer those questions.
Growing up in America, one of the things you're taught in Sunday school is that we're the people of the book, and you also hear the expression, we're the chosen people. Chosen doesn't mean we're better, it just means we have more responsibility. That's what we were taught. How does that impact, if at all, Hebrew University's mission, considering it's obviously a wonderful institution? Are they impacted by those? The book I get, that's easy. The question is the fact that we have more responsibility, arguably, how does that impact it at Hebrew University?
The Hebrew University bread and butter is research and teaching, but we are deeply, deeply committed to social responsibility and to being part of the community. And I'll give you two examples of what we do. And those are just two. I can give you a lot more examples if you want. In the social science and humanities, we brought into the campus of Mount Scopus all the institutions that deal with child welfare. Those are civil institutions. It's not part of the activity of the Hebrew University. We brought them here in order for them to interact with our social science school, with our psychology department, to have our students being involved there, to help those institutions cope with the serious issues that they cope with. To me, it's part of doing well, of tikkun olam, of doing things the right way. We just now bring to the university an addiction center. Addiction is one of the new diseases that affect our society. In the United States, you know about the addiction to opiates, but there are all types of new addictions that are around. It's happening in Israel, unfortunately, as well, and not just in the secular community, in other communities as well. So we bring in an addiction center outside the university, but near the university, in order to help it, with our expertise, deal with issues of society. And the goal here is not to make money. It's not to enhance the reputation of the university. It's simply to do good because we are in a position to do good to the community.
What do you consider to be the most important contribution Hebrew University is making in connection with the pandemic?
Well, the jury is still out. You know, when you deal with biological issues, you, generally speaking, do not solve them in 6 months. These are really complex issues. I do believe that at least one of the research projects that you actually helped us fund, Patty, but one of those research projects is not only going to provide some therapy for this particular virus, but it's going also to provide a therapy for whatever else comes from the corona strand, because this COVID-19 is just one of a series of viruses that can come from there. And our aim is not just to deal with that particular virus, which is important in and by itself, but to provide a general solution. And I think that so far the results seem to suggest that we are on the right path. On top of it, the other big contribution that we think we are going to offer to the world is in the future. Right now it seems fine, but in the future, when we'll need thousands and thousands of tests for whatever it is that we want to see, we will have a method that will be able to generate maybe 150 or 200,000 tests within a day in one particular location. So if we need tests, we'll be able to get them and get very accurate results of them. So that's the other groundbreaking research project that we are dealing with, and I hope that this one, actually within a relatively short time, will be available for the public.
One of the wonderful things about Israel is that academicians are not in some ivory tower. They are very much a part of the community, much more so than in this country. And because of that, I would think that the impact of science, among other things, would be more significant in Israel.
One of my goals as a president was to make it even more apparent that we are part of the community. I say it again, our bread and butter is excellent research, top-notch research and top-notch teaching. But we have to be involved in the community. We are a public university, we are funded by the public. We have to be involved in the community. We are part of the community, and I think this message nowadays comes across as working.
Asher, one of the concepts that you've espoused and promoted is this notion of internationalism for Hebrew University. How has that concept been impacted by the pandemic in light of essentially the borders of Israel being closed?
Short-term wise, it was negatively impacting the internationalization. That's obvious. So we had less international students. Our students do not travel as much elsewhere. The research collaborations between us and other universities slowed down a little bit. But we all know that this is only temporary. In terms of long-term goals, it hasn't changed at all. And I actually think that because the Hebrew University continued to talk to other universities, at times when some universities didn't have the energy to do that, in fact improved our international collaborations, and we'll see the outcome of this in a short while. And in fact, you heard about the peace process with the Emirates. We now are in the middle of trying to establish connections with some of the universities in the Emirates. We are doing it, and hopefully it will happen within a short period.
So let me ask you an unfair question. What have you learned, and your family, what have you learned from the pandemic?
I see two things. First of all, I guess the more negative aspect is the realization of the fragility of this world. We lived in an optimistic world in which we thought that we are going to do good and the world is going to get better, and it's a linear progression upwards. And what the pandemic taught us is that everything is quite fragile. The earth is not as solid as we thought it is. Things can go in the wrong way. And I think for my generation, I guess it's your generation as well, this will not go away. We will know that there are some question marks after the pandemic is gone. But I also saw the resiliency. Look what we did at the Hebrew University with teaching, and how we provide some answers to the challenge that the virus is posing to us. I see that as well. The resiliency of people, the ability to adjust, to do things differently, knowing that this is a situation that you have to deal with, so you deal with it. And I admire that. So, fragility and resiliency.
Listen, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. And if you, we should do this more often. We can do this once a month if you would like. But it's an honor to talk to you this directly, and it's also an honor to support Hebrew University. So thank you very much.
Well, Patty, you are one of our most esteemed friends. When I think about friends of the Hebrew University, you are the prototypical great friend. So talking to you is a lot of fun.
Thank you.
Thank you.